Where did you find all that?
LinkedIn.
Google.
Google, yes.
Oh, maybe that's it? So we have the special honor tonight to acknowledge two individuals who have exemplified the core principles of the Rotary Club through their contribution and commitment for the past decade or more. Rotary allows us to recognize these such persons with a Paul Harris Fellowship. Now, to understand this special recognition and what it means, we need to understand a bit about the history of Rotary and the Rotary organization. That history starts with Paul Harris. Paul Harris was born to Cornelia Bryan and George Harris in April of 1868. Paul described his father as a gregarious type whose planning and business acumen fell far short of his ideas and dreams. Now, George managed a drugstore purchased by his father-in-law, but he wasn't a particularly successful businessman, and that drugstore went bankrupt. And family stresses resulted in a family breakup. And George took Paul and his brother to live with George's parents in Wallingford, Vermont. And grandfather Harris taught Paul the work ethic and the need for tolerance. Paul had a bit of a rebellious nature as a youth, and he ended up going to the Vermont Military Academy, where he actually ended up excelling as a student, and his behavior significantly improved. Now, as a young adult, he attended several universities, and he eventually earned his law degree from the University of Iowa in June of 1891. The valedictorian at Paul's graduation encouraged the young lawyers to go explore the world before they settled down to practice law. And Paul took that advice and traveled to different countries over the next several years. Now, while traveling, he learned that what it felt like to be hungry, cold, and alone. He learned to survive based on his own resources. He learned that he needed his sense of humor, his intellect, and his raw hands to get by. He saw strangers perform extraordinary acts of kindness, and others cheat and steal to gain the upper hand. He also found goodness and learned that one gets no more out of life than what one puts into it. Paul eventually stopped traveling and arrived in Chicago in February of 1896. Now, Paul rented a small office there and hung out his shingle as a lawyer. Business was painfully slow. And he commented, to hang up a shingle was a simple matter. While I had not expected it to attract many, on the other hand, I had not thought everybody would ignore it. Anyways, Chicago had experienced the World's Fair, and following the World's Fair, business opportunities pretty much dried up in Chicago. And that left a survival of the fittest environment with respect to business. And a caveat emptor was the rule of the day. So buyer beware. Now, Paul, realizing that there was no consumer protection regulations, Paul took up the challenge to represent victims of fraud, embezzlement, and bankruptcy. Paul relates the story of August 1900 afternoon when he was taking a walk with Bob Frank down the street. And he noticed that all of the shop merchants that Bob passed by came out to greet him, shake his hand with a smile. Paul was astounded at how these businessmen all greeted Bob and each other and showed genuine mutual trust and friendliness. This was the seed that would grow in Paul's mind over the next several years. It was Thursday, February 23rd, 1905, when Paul Harris, Sylvester Shield, and Gustav Lohr met for dinner. Discussion came around to the idea of fellowship and creating a business booster club. They adjourned to Gus's office for further discussion, and Gus invited Hillier and Shorey. And they sat around the office table and shared their business background, their life history, their heritage. Paul shared that he lacked true friends, and had a sense of emptiness. He suggested that they could form a club with a simple objective to share mutual cooperation and informal business friendship. Each member would invite someone from each of the different professions that they were familiar with, only one person or only people with high integrity would be allowed to join the club. And it would become a club where reciprocal trade could flourish and be done with mutual trust. That was the first meeting. The second meeting was hosted in Paul's office. He invited another new member. And then the third meeting was in Sylvester's office, and two additional people joined. By the time they got to the fifth meeting, they had too many people to fit in an office, so they decided to go to a hotel. And for many months, they rotated from hotel to hotel. And that's where the name Rotary came from, by rotating their meetings from place to place. Now, the club adopted two objectives: the promotion of business interest of its members, and the promotion of good fellowship and other desiderata ordinarily incident to social clubs. Those are the words of the early or initial Rotary Club. Now, in 1906, a new member, Donald Carter, joined the club, and he championed the idea of community service. He drafted the third Rotary objective, which stated the advancement of the best interests of Chicago and the spreading of the spirit of civic pride and loyalty among its members. Now, Paul was not terribly happy with this Chicago focus. And he thought, why not try to replicate this club in other cities? Now, a Rotarian friend, Manuel Munoz, was to travel to San Francisco, and Paul encouraged him to try to get a Rotary Club going in San Francisco. And that started the spread of Rotary clubs, not just across America, but around the world. In 1917, Archie Clump commented, "Carrying on as we are a miscellaneous community service, it seems eminently proper that we should accept endowments for the purpose of doing good in the world." And he championed the creation of the Rotary Endowment Fund, and RI approved it. However, RI did not approve a mechanism to provide funds for the endowment fund. When Archie was completing his term as RI president, the Rotary Club of Kansas City had collected contributions to buy him a gift. And they had $26.50 left over, and they donated that to the Rotary Endowment Fund. So that was the first contribution. After 6 years, the fund grew to $700. The 1928 Rotary Convention changed the name to Rotary Foundation and decreed that the funds should be kept separate from the Rotary operational funds. Slowly, the fund grew to over $50,000 over the next 4 years. Now, after the stock market crash in 1929, donations for charitable causes dried up. And Paul Harris asked the Rotary Foundation to make its first donation. And the foundation sent a check for $500 to the International Society for Crippled Children. In 1937, RI announced plans to raise $2 million for the foundation, a significant effort. Shea Perry, writing in the Rotarian April 1944 edition, wrote, "An additional contribution of $5 a year by each Rotarian for the next 2 years would give RI an endowment of $2 million and make its foundation of great goodness." And this became the basis for each Rotarian to donate annually to the foundation. Now, following World War II, RI rewrote the objectives of the Rotary Foundation. The promotion, number one, the promotion of Rotary Foundation fellowships for advanced studies. 2, the fostering of any tangible and effective projects which have as their purpose the furthering of better understanding and friendly relations between peoples of different nations. And 3, the providing of emergency relief for Rotarians and their families wherever war or other disaster has brought general destruction and suffering. In 1947, RI sent a telegram to all of the world districts that changed Rotary Foundation forever. Paul Harris has died today. Stop. Am notifying all governors and regional officers of death and Paul's specific request to omit flowers and instead make contributions to Rotary Foundation for Paul Harris Memorial. Stop. Funeral Thursday. Stop. Phil Lovejoy. Donations poured in. by 1948, contributions exceeded $1,775,000, which is just extraordinary. Now, several foundation programs were established. The ambassadorial scholarship programs promoted international understanding and a friendly relationship between peoples of all nations. It was the largest privately funded international scholarship program in the world. As with all Rotary programs, local clubs would identify candidates and districts would select the scholars. This program was suspended in 2013. The group study exchange program would send 4 to 6 non-Rotary men and women aged 25 to 40 to another country for 2 to 4 weeks. A Rotarian would accompany them. In the other country, the candidates would receive accommodations from local Rotarians. The candidates would visit schools, courts, professional groups, civic leaders, businesses, and other Rotary clubs. This program was suspended in 2011. Now, I mention these two programs to illustrate the type of work Foundation was focused on. And in a few minutes, I'll mention a few more programs that Foundation now works towards. The Rotary Foundation has the Matching Grants program. This program requires paired Rotary clubs, one from a donor location, another from a receiving location, to collaborate on fundraising and eventual fund distribution. Now, these clubs can apply for and receive matching funds for whatever funds that they raise. This is not a blank check transfer of funds. The receiving club must actively be involved in managing the program to ensure the funds are used as proposed. In 1978, President Clem Reno wanted to involve more Rotarians in humanitarian work, and he championed the Health, Hunger, and Humanity grants. And he set as the objective to improve health, hunger, and enhance human, cultural, and social development among peoples of the world. The first grant was distributed in 1978 and helped immunize 6.3 million children in the Philippines against polio. This became the impetus for the Polio Plus program, with the objective to eliminate polio throughout the entire world. Now, I'm usually low-key about my own contributions, but in this instance, I think it's important to see how contributions can have a significant impact. I contribute $20 a paycheck to Rotary Foundation. That's $520 a year. My company, TELUS, matches my contribution. That's $1,040 per year. The Canadian federal government matches that contribution. So that actually turns into $2,880 per year. And the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation triples that contribution, which means that it's actually $8,320 per year, all from my $20 paycheck. Now, it's a small amount that I give, and because of matching contributions, it grows very significantly. And my funds are directed directly to the Polio Plus program to eradicate polio worldwide. But it's one way that I can give back to help kids around the world going forward. Now, our club was recognized in February as a top 3 polio eradicator in the district. It's pretty cool here that we're number 3, or number 2. Now, the Rotary Foundation raises more than $65 million annually. Some of those funds are allocated to the Foundation's World Fund, and the rest are allocated to district-designated funds. These funds are invested for 3 years. After 3 years, half of the money that was contributed by a district gets returned to the district for the district to use how the district chooses. Now, this sharing of foundation contributes to a key component to enabling the districts to operate programs that are specific and unique to their needs. So that's very significant when you contribute money to foundation and it goes into these district designated funds. That money can come back and help us in very significant ways going forward. Now, today, Rotary has 6 major areas of focus. 60 million people are displaced by armed conflict and persecution. Through our partnerships with several leading universities, Rotary Peace Fellows develop the skills to strengthen peace efforts, train local leaders to prevent and mediate conflict, and support long-term peace building in areas affected by conflict. Rotary provides up to 100 Peace Fellowships per year at Rotary Peace Centers. Another program, more than 100 million people are pushed into poverty each year because of medical costs. Rotary aims to improve and expand access to low-cost and free health care in underdeveloped areas. Our members educate, mobilize communities to help prevent the spread of major disease such as polio, HIV, AIDS, and malaria. Many of our projects ensure that medical training facilities are located where the workforce lives. More than 2.5 billion people lack access to adequate sanitation facilities. At least 3,000 children die each day from diarrhea diseases caused by unsafe water. Rotary projects give communities the ability to develop and maintain sustainable water and sanitation systems and support related studies for water and sanitation. At least 7 million children under the age of 5 die each year due to malnutrition, poor health, and inadequate sanitation. To help reduce this rate, Rotary provides immunizations and antibiotics to babies. They improve access to essential medical services and support trained healthcare providers for mothers and their children. Rotary projects ensure sustainability by empowering the local community to take ownership of healthcare training programs. 67 million children worldwide have no access to education, and more than 775 million people over the age of 15 are illiterate. Rotary's goal is to strengthen the capacity of communities to support basic education and literacy, reduce gender disparity in education, and increase adult literacy. Nearly 1.4 billion employed people live on less than $1.25 a day. Rotary carries out service projects that enhance economic and community development and develop opportunities for decent and productive work for young and old. Rotary also helps strengthen local entrepreneurs and community leaders, particularly women in impoverished communities. Now, the Rotary Fund, or the Rotary Foundation Fund, uses contributions from individual Rotarians and Rotary clubs. And it's fully recognized that the good deeds that are possible require cash. The fact that the phrase, cash makes the world go round, is absolutely true. Rotarians are great at providing volunteer service, but program materials and supplies cost real dollars. Shea Perry recognized this when he wrote in the Rotarian that every Rotarian should annually contribute a small amount. In 1957, RI established the Paul Harris program to recognize individuals who donate skills or money to support the goals of the foundation. These individuals were accepted as Paul Harris Fellows. Rotary uses the Paul Harris pin to recognize these individuals. Along with a pin, a medallion and a plaque is awarded. Individuals who donate $1,000 are accepted as Paul Harris Fellows. Individuals who donate their skills and service are also accepted as Paul Harris Fellows. As shown here are the medallions. This is an older medallion. This is the newer medallion that's used, as well as the Paul Harris Fellowship pin. So this is the basic pin. And if you are a multi-Paul Harris Fellow recipient, then you get sapphires or emeralds that surround your pin going forward. Tonight, I have the great honor to speak for our Rotary Club of Nepean-Kanata and recognize the significant contributions of two of our Rotarian friends. For both of them, despite no longer being a Rotarian, they continue to demonstrate and contribute to the Rotary ideals and objectives. Peter Freeman is an unsung hero to many members of our club. A past Rotarian who has never forgot service above self. Peter manages the regulations and procedures that govern our bingo work. Some of you may recognize Peter as he arrives at our meetings each month to get the necessary signatures for the official records for our bingo work. Without Peter, our bingo work would be immensely more challenging than it is today. This is Peter's second Paul Harris Fellowship. Peter, can you step forward to receive your pin? here. And being the second, well, I'm not going to pin it on, I'm just going to show it to you. Being the second pin, Paul Harris Fellowship, it comes with a little blue sapphire.
Wow, great.
Which is really cool.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Just say a few words, Anita, or not?
You'll have an opportunity.
Fine, that's what I feared.
I was going to surprise you later. Peter McHenry is our second Paul Harris Fellowship recipient. Second only because we did this alphabetically, Peter. Peter's been the icebreaker speaker for our Adventure in High Tech for more years than Bill Robinson could remember. Peter created the 50,000 K challenge, which resulted in the Winthrop Court gazebo being built. Peter is a past president of our club. And finally, he continues to be an active supporter of our bingo program. This is Peter's first Paul Harris Fellowship. Peter, can you step forward to receive your pin? So, Bob, here is your pin.
Thank you.
And I'll shake your hand. And we have this awesome, and we'll drop it. Brochure. I'm going to hold it out of the light. Oops. Okay. So plaque, and it can be framed. It's got a nice plastic in front to protect it, to recognize your significant contribution. Well, thank you very much. And I have to say, the medallion hasn't arrived yet. So I've been in touch with RI to get the medallion, but there's a medallion that goes with that as well. It's a bigger one that hangs around your neck.
Your medallion is in the mail.
That could very well be. They didn't say that though. They just said it's getting delivered. Thank you very much. Could you please join me in congratulating both of these distinguished Paul Harris fellows. Peter, if you could say a few words or 12.
I'll try and be quick, I assure you. First of all, well, thank you for those kind words, much appreciated. And secondly, obviously more important, I would like to thank the club very much indeed for letting me become or receiving another Paul Harris Fellowship Award. I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed for your kind thoughts. I'd like to say just a couple of words about bingo, because bingo in many people's minds brings a sort of, I wouldn't say sneer, but perhaps don't consider it in the good light that perhaps it should be considered. I've been involved in bingo since I originally became a member of Rotary, and that was back in 2001. And although bingo is time-consuming, to say the least, I cannot say that it is arduous by any stroke of the imagination. And when I look around and see members of the club with all the effort they put in running the daily affairs or weekly affairs of the club, and all the work and determination they put into their pet projects, I feel that perhaps they have a far, or deserve a fellowship award far more than I do. Anyway, beside the point. Quick word on bingo. It's a great fundraiser, averaging about between $17,000 and $18,000 a year. The club has received, since it got involved in bingo, over $500,000, and it's allowed the club to make over $500,000 worth of contributions to a vast number of worthy causes, which, if there wasn't bingo money, there wouldn't be so many people receiving. And so bear that in mind. Another good thing about bingo is that as far as the club's concerned, is that it doesn't need organisational effort or skill. Bingo Land South provides all the infrastructure, all the organisational efforts. The only thing the club basically has to do is to con people into getting onto the bingo duty roster and working that way. So when you go down there, you're faced with a group of people who actually want to buy your bingo tickets. You're not having to go to your friends and beat them over the head saying, please buy a raffle ticket, please buy this book, please buy, give me this, give me that. And, you know, bingo, as I said, if it produces 18,000 bucks a year, that's a lot of money compared with what you might get from getting money from your friends. So all I would suggest is that for as long as you can, try and keep bingo going. I know there are changes maybe on the horizon, but they've been saying that for God knows how long. So keep it going, because I think basically the return that you get for the amount of effort that you put in or have to put in is a really big factor. You get a lot of money for a relatively little amount of work. So once again, thank you very much indeed for the award. I really do appreciate it.